Hi guys, Mimi G here. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a sew along to one of the new McCall patterns, 8514. This denim jumpsuit is everything. Okay, so I'm super excited. Let's get started. Now, if you're new to sewing or you just need a refresher course, check out sewitacademy.com for our free trial. Watch those videos and then come back and sew with me. All right, guys, we're going to be working on McCall's 8514. I'm going to be making view B, so I'm not doing the contrast view. These are the shorts. There is a cutting line on the pants, so if you want to make the short, the sewing is the same. All you really need to do is cut along that cut line. If you want to make the color blocked version, then you're just going to select what piece, whether it's the front, the middle, or the side in whatever colors you wish. I'm just going to be using one same color denim for the entire thing. Remember that on the back of the envelope, you're always going to have a list of suggested fabrics. And you're also going to have a list of notions. In this case, we're going to need a 20-inch zipper. And also I want to make sure that you notice that the finished measurements aren't on the back of the envelope, but they are given. They're just on the actual instructions. So if you open out your instructions, you'll see at the very bottom, you'll have your finished garment measurements, which is what you should be using to decide what size you're going to actually cut. All right, let's go over the pattern pieces that we're gonna need to cut. We're gonna start with pattern piece number 5. This is our middle back for all views. You're gonna go ahead and cut 2. I wanna also point out that this piece had an extension. So if you cut out 5A, it connects to 5. So you wanna make sure to line up your circles, okay, overlap them, and then go ahead and take this to have one full piece. You're also going to cut out pattern piece number 6. This is the side back, also for all views. You're going to cut 2. Then we have pattern piece number 4. This is the back, and you're going to cut 2. For the front, we have pattern piece number 3. This is our side front. You're going to cut 2. Then you're going to cut out pattern piece number 1. This is our front. You're also going to cut 2, and I want you to notice that you have cut lines here. Okay, so when you cut your 2 pieces for the front, for your right front, this is your cutting line. For the left side, you're going to cut along this line. You'll see it says cut here for left. Remember that you're looking at the opposite side. So if you need to put it up against your body to make sure you're cutting left and right, go ahead and do that. Then we're going to cut pattern piece number 2. This is our middle front for all views. You're going to cut 2 of fabric, and this piece also has an extension. We're also going to cut pattern piece number 9. This is our back facing, and it's cut on the fold. You will also need to cut 1 on the fold for interfacing. Then we have pattern piece number 8, which is our left front facing, and you're going to need to cut 1 of fabric and 1 of interfacing. Then you're going to cut out pattern piece number 7. This is our right front facing. You're going to cut 1 of fabric and you're going to cut 1 of interfacing. Make sure and transfer all of your dots and all of your notches. Once we have everything cut and interfaced, we can go ahead and start sewing. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you're going to stay stitch the side of your front. So you'll also notice that my right front has the extension, and for the left front, I went ahead and cut along that line that was indicated on the pattern piece. Now you're going to stay stitch from the top just past your double notch. You're going to do that on both sides. Okay, now you're going to go ahead and grab your middle front, and you should have 2 notches. That's what you're going to use to line up this piece. So I'm going to match up my double notches first and pin. And right sides are facing. You're going to continue pinning all the way down. I want you to pin your other middle front to your front the same way. Now we're going to head to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to start at my hem and work my way up. All right, once we have that sewn, I went ahead and serged my raw edges. And now if you plan to top stitch, then you're going to go ahead and press your seam allowance towards the middle front piece, and that's where you're going to be doing your top stitching. Now the top stitching is optional, but if you're gonna be using a contrasting stitch like a yellow on denim, that's gonna look really beautiful. Because I'm doing the sew along, I'm not gonna be switching out my threads. That would just take me too long, so I'm just going to be using just a blue, same blue thread that I'm using to sew this up. And I'm going to go ahead, press my seam allowance towards the middle front, and I'm going to go ahead and top stitch 3/8 of an inch from the edge. All right, so now we have our front, we have our middle front. Now we're gonna go ahead and pin our side front. So with right sides facing, we're gonna go ahead and place our side front matching our notches, okay, to our middle front. You're gonna pin all the way down. Okay, I want you to go ahead and pin your other side front to your middle front the same way. We might need to ease some of this curvature as we're stitching. So what you could do is just ease it by creating easing stitches and then just pulling, but that really does depend on your bust size. So for me, there just isn't that much that I need to ease. So I think I can get away with just pinning and stitching and then making a couple snips if I need to, but it's looking like I'll be okay. You're gonna go ahead and pin your other fronts the same way. Let's head to the sewing machine. And again, starting at the hem, we're gonna stitch all the way up using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, we're gonna start working on our back. So we're gonna go ahead and place our two back pieces. This is our center back. We're gonna go ahead and place them right sides facing, and we're going to pin. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead to the sewing machine, and using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, we're going to stitch from our crotch all the way up the back. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and grab our middle front and right sides facing. We're gonna go ahead and pin. You have notches, so make sure that you're aligning those notches. You're gonna pin this all the way down, then you're gonna grab your other middle back and you're going to do the same thing. You're gonna pin it in the same way. Once you have your middle back stitched onto the back, we're gonna go ahead and stitch, starting again at the hem, working our way up using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so just like we did for the front, we're gonna go ahead and pin our side back to our middle back. You're gonna pin, making sure that you align those double notches. You're gonna do the same thing on both sides, and then starting at the hem and working your way up, you're gonna stitch using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, now that we have our full back completed and our front, we're gonna go ahead and stitch our shoulders together. So right sides facing, we're gonna go ahead and pin our shoulders. Okay, now head to your sewing machine and you're gonna stitch your shoulders using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so now that we have sewn together our shoulders, I set that aside. We're gonna go ahead and pin our front facings to our back facings. So I'm gonna go ahead and place my back facing up facing me. And then you're gonna go ahead and grab your right facing and you're gonna go ahead and pin. And then you're gonna go ahead and grab your left facing and you're gonna pin. Okay, just like you did your shoulders, go ahead and stitch your shoulders of the facings together using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then I want you to press your seam open. So I went ahead and finished the edge of my facing. You could turn this under and stitch a 1/4 inch, but I'm using denim and I just don't want the additional bulk. So with right sides facing, we're gonna go ahead and pin. I'm gonna pin my shoulders first, making sure that I'm aligning those seam lines. And then I'm gonna continue pinning along the back. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and do my right front. This is a really long, long piece. If you guys are doing the long version with me, you understand that this is a really long piece. I should have done the shorts, is what I'm saying. Okay, let's go ahead and pin the right front. And now we can do the left front. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch all the way around our entire facing using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I actually wanted to point something out before we head to the sewing machine. You'll notice that there's a dot here on my facing. You should have that same dot marked on your facing and also on your front. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna clip into that dot. So we're gonna go ahead and clip at an angle. You're gonna cut to the dot, don't go past the dot, like that. Okay, now we can go ahead and continue pinning that little piece there. All right, now we can go ahead and stitch our facing in place. Okay, so before understitching, I'm gonna go ahead and trim off some of this seam allowance, leaving about 3/8 of an inch. And then I'm just gonna make some little clips into those corners, those little rounded parts. Okay, continue trimming your seam allowance all the way around, and then you're gonna head to your sewing machine and you're going to understitch. All right, so I have gone ahead and turned my facing to the inside and I went ahead and pressed. I also went ahead and top stitched. You probably can't see it because I'm using the same color thread as my fabric, but I went ahead and top stitched 3/8 of an inch all the way around my facing to keep it nice and flattened to the inside. Now we're gonna go ahead and fold over our left front. You'll notice that I went ahead and serged now. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew our front crotch together. So I'm gonna bring my fronts together here. It's such a large piece. All right, here we go. Now you have notches, right? You have a notch there in the crotch. So we're gonna go ahead and pin. And we're gonna stop stitching at that dot. Remember, we have a dot there that we had made earlier when we attached our facing to the right front. I'm gonna make a little tiny snip there. so it lays flat. Okay, now starting at the crotch, we're gonna work our way up using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. We're gonna back stitch when we get to our dot. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and press my front crotch open. Now you're also gonna go ahead and on the left, you're going to fold and press a 1/2 inch. Okay, so grab your zipper and on the left side, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna place it so that the folded edge is close to our zipper teeth, okay? And we're gonna go ahead and pin. Now you should be using at least a 20-inch zipper, so mine is fairly long enough, but it's what I have, so I'm gonna make it work. Your top should be about 1/8 of an inch from the top, so I'm gonna have to cheat mine a little bit just because, like I said, I have a bit shorter zipper than is needed, but that's okay. I'm gonna make it work. So I'm going to go ahead and place my zipper tape with my zipper facing up and my folded edge along the zipper teeth. I'm going to place a couple of pins just to hold it in place. Okay, now we're going to head to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch close to the folded edge. Okay, so I actually made a mistake and I thought of just re-recording the section, but I thought it would be a good learning moment. So initially I had you fold your facing to the inside and press the entire thing 1/2 inch and then stitch. So as you can see, I have the rest stitched. I just sort of unpicked about 3 inches or so. And I also went ahead and removed about 3 inches of that top stitching because we're not going to need that right now. We need to be able to turn this over when we're done stitching the rest of our zipper in place. So my apologies. What we're going to do is again, unpick your top stitching if you top stitched, and then unpick just about 3 or 3.5 inches of your zipper. No need to unstitch the entire thing. I'm going to go ahead and open it just so it's a little bit out of my way. I'm going to continue pressing that 1/2 inch. So I have my facing up, as you can see, and we're going to go ahead and place that there, and I'm going to pin. Okay, so now go to your sewing machine and just stitch that 3.5 inches or so that we unpicked. Okay, so now that we have that little piece stitched back down, we can go ahead and turn our facing to the inside, just like this. And I'm gonna go ahead and pin. Now you can slip stitch this closed, or you can go ahead to your sewing machine and just top stitch following your existing stitching, right? And then just close it up that way. So now we're gonna go ahead and move on to the other side of our zipper. Okay, so now we're just gonna go ahead and overlap our right front over our left front. And you don't wanna pull, right? So you wanna make sure that you're not pulling and it basically just falls naturally. So make sure everything is nice and flat. And you're gonna go ahead and overlap and pin. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and baste the zipper in place just to make sure that we're catching it when we top stitch. So I'm gonna turn this to the wrong side so that wrong side is facing me. And I'm just gonna go ahead and slip stitch this side of the zipper tape by hand just really quickly. Okay, now that I have gone ahead and basted my zipper in place, I wanna make sure that I'm clearing my zipper teeth. So I'm actually just gonna measure. So I know that that's about 1.25 inches. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a couple of marks just for myself, just to make it easier to sort of follow a guide as I'm top stitching and making sure, one, I'm clearing my zipper teeth, and two, that it's just even all the way up. I mean, you could skip the step if you want, but I don't know, I find it helpful. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and top stitch, and then we're gonna go ahead and stitch across. All right, once we have our zipper done, we can go ahead and sew up our side seams. All right, so right side's facing, we're gonna go ahead and pin our side seams together. You can choose to just baste this in place, so that way when we do our inseam, we can do a quick fit check. Okay, go ahead and pin your other side seam. You're gonna go ahead and pin your other side seam the same exact way. And then since we're already here, we're gonna go ahead and pin our inseam together. That way we can do it all at one time when we are at the machine. Okay. Now let's go ahead and pin our inseam. So I'm gonna bring my seam lines together, making sure they match. You're gonna do your other side the same exact way. Okay, let's head to the sewing machine. You're gonna stitch your side seams first, starting at the hem and working your way up using 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once we do that, we're gonna switch over and then stitch our inseam in place. All right, guys, we are almost done. We're gonna go ahead and grab our bias binding. I have already done one side, so we're gonna go ahead and finish off our armhole. So I have my bias tape. I have opened up one folded edge, so sort of like this, press it out. And we're gonna pin it and then stitch along that crease that's there. So I cut an extra long piece because it just makes it easier. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and pin our bias tape to our armhole. I'm gonna start at the side seam. I'm gonna fold over the cut edge of my bias tape. I don't know, about 1/2 inch or so. So I'm just gonna loosely pin this because I just adjust as I go along on the sewing machine. I think it's just easier that way, but for the sake of the sew along, I'll go ahead and pin. And then this piece will overlap there. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna head to the sewing machine. We're gonna stitch following the crease that is in our bias fold. And then what we're gonna do after that is we're going to turn and then turn again, pin and then top stitch. And you're gonna just see me do that all at the sewing machine. So just follow along with what I'm doing. Okay, so now that it's stitched in place, we're gonna fold along the crease and then we're gonna fold again. Okay, so you have a clean edge, fold on the inside, and then it'll be nice and finished on the outside. You're gonna do that all the way around and pin. I like top stitching on the right side of my fabric, so I'm gonna make sure that my pins are on the outside. Gonna fold and then fold again. Continue doing this until you have pinned the bias tape all the way around. All right, you guys, once you're done attaching your bias, the only thing left for you to do is to finish off the hem of your jumpsuit. Now you could either serge, turn under the hem allowance and stitch, or you could do a double fold. I would suggest doing one final fit check and making sure you like the length Once you decide on that, go ahead and finish both of your hems and you are all done. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's sew along. Make sure and follow me on Instagram if you're not following already at Mimi G Style, and make sure and tag us at Simplicity Creative Group. Until next time, peace.